Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and a good morning to you all. It's February 8th, 2024, and this is potentially a very important date in American history, given the fact that the Supreme Court of this country is about to hear a case unlike any other they've ever heard about whether or not the putative Republican nominee for president should be allowed on the ballot, technically on a ballot, one primary ballot, but obviously the ramifications of them removing him from a one state's ballot would create an incredible firestorm. So I say this because these arguments are supposed to take place pretty much now. They could well last for hours. I feel that our responsibility to be witnesses to the history that is being made almost on an hourly basis in these roiling times, that I really, really want to be there. And we can all be there because the audio of the questions, the responses, the questions from the judges, the responses from the two attorneys who will be before them. I'm sorry. My head is. Here's what I want to tell you. I feel that I might let this show be abbreviated so that not just I, but that you can hear the arguments. I'm sure some of it will be somewhat legalistically incomprehensible. On the other hand, some of it will not. This is a case that brings up the issue of the 14th Amendment, which says that anyone who has, well, I don't have it here in front of me. I suppose I should, and we could read it, but that anyone who essentially engages in or aids and abets insurrection shall not be allowed to hold office. Here, I've got my little constitution here. No person, this is Amendment 14, whatever, Section 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. Okay. All Trump has going for him in this case, I think, is this absurd argument that he is not an officer he was not an officer of the United States. And because this never says president, it names all these state legislators, dog catcher, everybody, but somehow president doesn't get mentioned, except that someone who serves as an elector of the president would not be allowed. The things going on here are so fascinating because if the court, I don't know what to tell you. I think, first of all, I want to say that if Clarence Thomas shows up, that is so despicable. He no more belongs sitting on that bench hearing this case. Well, I was going to say than I do. I have more standing. Here is a guy whose wife was absolutely aiding and abetting that insurrection, actively working toward it, and he does not recuse himself from this. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Now, I've sort of got my ear tuned to, you'll be able to hear this on National Public Radio. They'll be carrying it. I don't know who else will. But so I've got my ear sort of tuned to that, which is why I'm also being a little not quite as fluid in my verbiage as I normally am. But from what I can vaguely hear, they have not begun yet. But at some, I really do think I'm going to bail out early so that we all can hear this case. Nina Totenberg, who's covered the Supreme Court for gazillions of years, will be, I imagine, guiding us, probably inserting her voice every once in a while to tell us who we're listening to. And she pointed out that this is not happening in a vacuum, that this is happening in a country that is teetering right now on the verge of violence, the threat of violence, and how many people have said that if the court were to find against Donald Trump in this case, it could set off insurrection exactly of the kind that we witnessed on January 6th. So there's so much at stake. I was reading today in the Washington Post. The headline of this story was Russia bars anti-war candidate from challenging Putin in March election. Now, the absurdity here is that Vladimir Putin stands for election, for re-election. But this is, again, the kind of performative politics that authoritarians engage in. We're going to appear to have an election, but we all know it is just a performance. We know the winner beforehand, and people are prevented from running. Like this guy, he's worried that this guy would actually not beat him, but would show that there is a large anti-war, anti-Ukraine war segment of the Russian population. So the article says that Russia has euphemistically described their form of government as, quote, managed democracy. I'm sorry, I'm waiting to hear if they've started here. I think it has started. So, managed democracy. And what that means is no democracy. But this, again, the idea of managed democracy and the performative aspect of it is we're already seeing with the Republicans in Congress. And I feel so fearful of where we are heading. And this case is part of the effort to push back against this frightening tide. I'm going to leave you with a quote, and then I'm going to suggest that we all listen seriously, because it has begun. I read this, and I'm unclear again where I saw it, but somebody is talking about the unbelievable angst so many of us feel these days, and what it means, what's at the heart of it. Now, I could say it's losing our democracy, for God's sake. It's letting fascists, racists, bigots, misogynists take over our nation. But this person says this, and then I'm going to say goodbye and listen to this historic argument. I suspect that a major part of the angst over the success of the far right in our country is not just about their actual chance at taking power, at wielding power, but the sense that every gain they make is a sign that a foundational taboo is eroding, and with it, a shared story of political identity and purpose. What is happening now, and I just want to say, is nothing less than the attempt of millions and millions of people in this country right now, aided and abetted by the Republican Party, to abandon the identity of the United States of America and to abandon the great experiment begun by the founding of this nation. It's nothing less than that. So, guys, I'm going to say goodbye to you. And I suggest you all listen. In Pittsburgh, it's 90.5 FM. Listen to this. I am going to, and forgive me for this, but I think it's much more important than listening to me babble. Thank you.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.